And good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know for some of you that are hopping on, and welcome to our monthly special event, specifically for our ASEA customers. We find that it is so essential to be able to learn more information about our ASEA products as you continue to experience them for yourself. And so this month is a very special event. It's one of our Ask the Doc forums. And so if you haven't been to one of these forums before, this is a Q&A with one of the members of our ASEA Medical Professional Board. And so today we are privileged to have Dr. Dick Walker here with us. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Walker.
You bet.
And,
Good morning.
And Dr. Walker is a member of our ASEA Medical Professional Board. He has been with ASEA for the last 10 years now, but his background has actually been, he had about 38 years as a board certified physician specializing in emergency and internal medicine. And so he is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to ASEA and our products and how they might be able to help people with specific conditions that they might be dealing with. So if you are on Facebook, you will be able to put in the chat any questions that you might have for Dr. Walker. So maybe you're starting to you're getting started with ASEA, and you might be wondering if you can use ASEA on a sodium restricted diet, or if it might be able to help with immune system conditions. I will just ask that you remain as compliant as possible. ASEA is not a treatment or a cure for any medical condition. And so rather than naming a specific condition, if you can ask a question that's around a symptom that you're dealing with, that will help us to remain compliant. So Dr. Walker, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got involved in ASEA?
Sure, absolutely. You know, I've been a physician, as you said, for quite a few years, and even though my professional life and what I really love to do was emergency medicine, I also had another side where I was really interested in prevention and natural things. In fact, I got an additional degree in preventive medicine. A lot of that was studying nutrition and what we currently knew back then on how to keep the body healthy. But most of what I've learned has actually been independently, just looking at the literature, just talking to people, just watching what was going on. And I stumbled on, when I was looking at some anti-aging science, I studied on the mention of redox signaling molecules, which at that time, 10, 15 years ago was a brand new science, really. But it seemed to hold a lot of promise, but I couldn't find any place where there was any ability to supplement with these molecules. And then a friend of mine, a physical therapist, said, I found a company that has redox signaling molecules as a supplement. And I said, you're kidding me. I didn't know that was possible. And a week later, we were on an airplane flying down to Salt Lake City to meet with, Vertus Norton and the scientists behind this product. And we came away convinced that they really had what they said they had. Now, we didn't have a whole lot of science back then, to indicate what this might do, but we did have enough science to indicate that it was very safe and that you could take it and not have to worry about it doing any harm. And so I started taking it. My wife started taking it. We started to see some great things happen, and we were going to some gatherings every week or so, and people were coming and reporting what was happening to them. And it was just an amazing journey trying to figure out what these molecules were, what they could do. And so the last 10 years has been really kind of a journey of discovery in terms of understanding the science of redox and how it runs the body, and how supplementing and bioreplenishing can improve things. So it's been as much of a journey for me as anybody else in ASEA, I think, because the science has evolved along with a better understanding, or I should say that in reverse. We've gained a better understanding of what this product can do as the science of redox has progressed and expanded, exponentially.
Absolutely. And can you describe in your own words, how would you describe what ASEA is and the kind of impact that it can have on people's health?
Sure. ASEA is redox signaling molecules. There's nothing else in there. And how I describe redox signaling molecules, I mean, the biochemistry of redox is pretty complicated, but maybe the easiest way to understand it is communication. And our body is made up of trillions of cells, and each one of those cells is kind of an independent living entity. It doesn't survive without the other cells around it, but it needs to communicate many things inside of the cell so that that cell can thrive and do what it's supposed to do. But it also needs to communicate with the other cells in the body. So how does it do that? We've always just taken it for granted that that happened, but it wasn't until the discovery of redox signaling and these crucial molecules that we started to get an understanding of how that happens. How does the body organize all of the biochemistry that takes place, and how does it organize the cells so that they work together to create a healthy functioning body? And so that's been very interesting, learning that, and that's what they do. They provide a mode of communication, and I guess a simplistic way to think of that is that the cells don't have a written language or anything, but they do have an alphabet, and they talk. That alphabet is made up of redox signaling molecules in order to message and communicate within that system, a very complicated system.
Oh, fascinating. And I know that you've been doing this for a long time now. So you've been with ASEA, you've been recommending ASEA for the last 10 years now. And so why is it that you encourage people to use ASEA as a foundational tool for being proactive with your health?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a symptom or something in your body that's telling you something isn't working the way it should, or the way it did a week ago or whatever, when you considered yourself healthy, there's one of two things going on in your body. Since your body is made of cells, you have cells that are either not performing what they're supposed to do, and you've got a symptom as a consequence of that, or they're doing something that they're not supposed to do. And if one of those two things is happening, eventually you're going to feel it. You're going to notice it. Something's going to happen. It may be a symptom, or it may actually be a disease process that's gotten started in your body, and in part as a consequence of inappropriate or inadequate signaling. And really the foundation of keeping your cells up to snuff and healthy and doing what they're supposed to do is really good communication. It's really these molecules. Without these molecules, your cells really would not function. And we've learned over time that there are a number of reasons why our body may not have enough of them. And so the communication breaks down. And when that happens, the cells can't function. Or they start doing things that they're not supposed to do because they're getting the wrong message, or they're not getting the message that they need to do what they're supposed to do. And so just about anything that goes sideways in your body, any kind of abnormalities, are the root cause of those is many times a breakdown in that signaling. And so we see people be able to take these molecules in their body, the cells in their body are able to use them as a tool to fix and repair. And they've been using this as a tool ever since you were born, ever since your body was created. It's been using these molecules as a tool to be healthy, stay healthy, get healthy, but many times they don't have enough. And that's very common in people as they're getting older, but we see children benefit from this too. So obviously there are situations in your cells where even if you're young and should have enough of these molecules naturally, you don't, and supplementing with them can be beneficial. And I should mention, because maybe not everybody on here knows, that these molecules are native to your body. Every cell in your body makes them. If they didn't, the cell wouldn't survive. It's just something that happens as a byproduct of cellular energy production, but you have to have them. And sometimes the ones that your body makes are just not sufficient in quantity to get the job done.
Yeah, it really is amazing what this product can do for people when you do supplement with these redox molecules. And I just want to let everybody know our technical glitch has been solved. So if you do have a question for Dr. Walker, you can now put it in the chat here on Zoom. I know that many of you are here on Zoom, so we are watching your questions come in, so you can either post them on our Facebook chat or on Zoom. We are taking a look at those now. So one other question for you, being on the medical board with ASEA, can you share some of the conversations that are happening around research with ASEA in the future?
Yeah, the medical professional board is just it's a group of medical folks who are involved with the ASEA, who are interested in, the recent technology. And we share articles, studies back and forth. I just got one from Dr. Lee Osler last week. As we find something new in the literature, because things are being published all the time in the peer-reviewed journals. And we don't have, it would be a full-time job for every one of us to keep up with all of that. But periodically, one of us will stumble upon or be doing a search and find a new publication that we all think is useful for us to further our understanding of this and be able to, advise ASEA, or at least let ASEA know. I mean, ASEA knows what's going on in the scientific world, but they can't always keep up on the latest research from around the world. And so we'll say, hey, were you aware of this? Did you see this? And they say, usually they say, oh yeah. And so we, render an opinion on what that might mean for ASEA or for new product development, that sort of thing. And the other thing we are doing now is to help them sort of formulate their messaging to the field so that they can better message to you and I and new associates and new customers, get a simple message out about what ASEA is, what it does, how it can help, that sort of thing.
Which is so essential because it's a technology that is brand new. Many people haven't heard about it. And so sometimes we make it a little bit too complex when we're explaining it to people. So that's fantastic that you guys are working on the simplicity of it. And then I have one more question before we open it up. But actually this question, I saw a question pop up in the chat that your question is going to be answered as well there. I think it was Barbara. So question is, what would you recommend if someone wants to dive into the science of redox more? Where did you go to research, and what can people anticipate finding? And that ties into Barbara's question, who asked, why are there articles saying that this is a scam and it's only salt water? So a lot of questions all tied up right there, but hopefully you can address some of those.
Yeah, I'll address the scam thing. Those are not articles. Those are opinions. And so I am unaware of any scientifically peer-reviewed, journal-published article that states that supplementing with redox is a scam. It doesn't exist. What you're talking about is people's opinion on things like Google. And those are not scholarly articles. Those are not science. Those are one person's opinion, not based in any facts or scientific investigation. If you want science on redox, and when you're searching in the scientific databases, you don't search ASEA. ASEA is a brand name. You search redox signaling molecules, and probably the most robust source of information is the National Institute of Health, and their website is pubmed.gov.gov. And you'll come up on a website, and then you can you go to the search bar and you start searching redox signaling molecules, and you can add descriptive terms like a disease or a condition or whatever, and what you'll get back on that database is a listing of any published scientific articles about that topic that have been published in thousands of journals around the world. Fortunately, those are all English, so you don't have to deal with translation. There are probably many other articles in other languages, but most of them eventually get interpreted into English and published in the English language journal. So there are literally there's close to 100,000 references in there that have some relationship to redox if you really want to dive in there. And so PubMed.gov, and the other is Google Scholar, not Google. If you go to Google search, you're going to get opinions, some of them good, some of them bad. The majority of them actually, I haven't looked in there for a long time, but the majority of them used to be positive. But those are opinions. Those aren't science. If you want science, you go to googlescholar.com.
Awesome. I think that's a fantastic answer for that question, especially as people are starting to dive into researching ASEA and knowing the difference between an opinion and actual research. So I appreciate you pointing that out. So let's go ahead and open it up for questions here. Our first question is, a friend has an issue with water retention, which notes that she might have a kidney issue. She has been working on some extreme fatigue and bloating and weight gain for years. Can you comment on that? On how ASEA might be able to help?
Well, ASEA could possibly help that. ASEA is a tool that your body can put to work to correct problems at the cellular level, whether they're kidney cells or liver cells or skin cells, doesn't matter. And if the function of those cells is correctable, and many times it is, then supplementing with redox molecules could make a difference. Now, some folks that have issues there are on a sodium restriction, and so we might as well cover that issue as well, because if your kidney function is so severely restricted that you've been told that you have to restrict sodium and have been given a target, of how many milligrams of sodium you need to stay within, then all you have to do is calculate the amount in your dose of ASEA and subtract it somewhere else in your diet. And just about everything that you put in your mouth has a little sodium in it, especially canned fruits and vegetables and foods. So just go into your pantry or your cupboard and look at some of those things, and you're going to find sodium in there. And ASEA, since it's made from salt and water, does have sodium in it, but it's manageable for most people. You just offset it with a reduction somewhere else in the things that you put in your body.
Awesome. I appreciate you addressing that as well, because that's often a very common question that people have is the amount of sodium that's in ASEA. So Linda has a question. She has an issue with extreme shaking in her hands and hand tremors. Can you address how ASEA might be able to facilitate in helping with that?
Well, just like anything else, if you have a problem like that, somewhere in your body, you've got cells that aren't performing up to snuff, or they're doing something they're not supposed to do. And ASEA is a tool that your body can use to fix those cells. And if the body's able to fix and repair those cells or eliminate the ones that are causing the problem, all of that is possible, because all of that is within the realm of what your body can do to regain its health. Many times it hasn't done that because it doesn't have enough of these molecules to send out the appropriate signals.
Awesome. And Vivi has a question. She said, would it be possible for a person with an organ transplant to be able to use redox signaling molecules? It's not me, but a friend who had a transplant a couple years ago.
Well, redox signaling molecules are native to your body. Your body makes them all the time. So your body is using them all the time, or it wouldn't be here. And what's in the ASEA blue bottle is identical to what your body is making. So of course they can use it. There's nothing else in ASEA. There's nothing that your body has to deal with in a way that has to deal with drugs. And so it's a replenishment technology. So there's really no restriction with regard to somebody who's had organ transplant.
Yeah. And Diana has a great question here. She says, how to respond when someone asks if there is a scientific study specific to a medical condition that someone is dealing with?
Well, again, I would go to PubMed.gov. And what you would do is put in redox signaling molecules, and then you would put in the condition. And what you're going to find, if it exists in the scientific world, are articles that address the role of redox signaling and redox signaling molecules in that disease, either preventive or how it's related to the redox function in your body. So if you're interested in what science, if it exists, dealing with a particular problem in redox, that's the way to find it.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. Kasia had a question. In general, do you advise to lower other supplements when taking ASEA? My feeling is that my supplements are more effective when I started taking ASEA. Have you seen that as well, or can you address that?
That's a possibility because as the general functionality of your body improves, absorption, utilization of nutrients, it may be that you don't need as high of a amount of any particular supplement. It hasn't been studied that I know of, but your body is more efficient at using the nutrients that you put in there. So it's likely that you could, if you're mega dosing or taking large quantities of any particular nutrients, that you might be able to cut back a little bit. And I would just go with how your body feels. If those supplements were helping the way you felt, your energy levels, those sorts of things, why continue on them. There's no reason why not to. But I feel that the number one supplement that you need to take care of if you're on a budget is ASEA, because it is the most foundational to your overall health and wellness at the cellular level. Everything else is sort of in addition to and on top of that, and targeted at specific results. But ASEA is a very potent general cellular health product.
Yeah, we have another kidney question, I guess, that came in. So someone whose mom has been a kidney patient, and she's actually been taking ASEA for the last 2 years, and she's been doing super well, but all of a sudden her hemoglobin is getting pretty low, and she's wondering if it might be a healing crisis, or what might be causing something like that to happen as she's taking ASEA.
Something other than ASEA. So there's something going on, and I would be talking to her doctor about it, but that can happen in long-term renal disease just as a consequence of long-term renal disease, whether or not the kidney doctors understand that. But I would ask them. It's not it isn't related to redox. Obviously she's been on it for a long period of time, but that brings up a topic too. ASEA will never cause your body to do something harmful. They just can't. These molecules can't do that. Your body is going to use them for signaling and for the purposes that it uses these molecules, but those are never nefarious purposes. It's either going to help you, or in the rare case that your body doesn't need them, it's just going to they're just going to decay back to salt water, and you'll just eliminate that extra fluid from your body. And so ASEA molecules can never, ever cause damage or something harmful in your body. It just can't do it. It's physically and scientifically impossible.
Yeah, I appreciate you addressing that kind of overlying factor there. Just for the sake of time, to be respectful of Dr. Walker's time, we'll just take 2 more questions here. Question number 1 is, how do you open up a conversation about, well, it says a DNA trained scientist about ASEA, but perhaps we can make a blanket statement and just address how do you open up a conversation with a medical professional or someone who is pretty highly trained in the scientific realm?
Well, I think good question is ask them what they know about redox. Yeah. And many of them are going to look at you and like, what are you talking about? Now that reaction isn't as common now as it was 10 years ago. But if regardless of what profession they're in, doctor or whatever, unless they are looking at science literature with regards to health, and many don't once you're out of school and you don't really need to be searching the science databases, they're not necessarily going to be aware of redox. So I think a good opening question is, what do you know about redox, or how much do you know about redox, or have you ever heard of redox? And start to get, that's at least a good opening question, and then start. I think the best way to approach anybody is to ask questions. And then if it's a professional that has a health challenge, then there's even more reason to ask questions. Have you ever heard of Redox? Do you know if Redox, do you know if this new cell signaling technology has any bearing on the problem that you have or whatever? But start asking questions to find out what they know, if they know, and then just get into a conversation with people, because oftentimes it leads to them saying, well, no, it sounds like you know a lot about this. It sounds kind of interesting. And now you can start to talk to them about what redox is and what you've learned that it can do.
Awesome. And then the last question that we have is, how does ASEA assist with inflammation in the body? And maybe you could even touch on the genetic study that was also done for ASEA as well.
Yeah, that's a really good question to close on, because ASEA is very good at modulating and normalizing what we call homeostasis, cellular oxidation. And oxidative stress in the cells is the precursor to what we think of as inflammation. When I think of inflammation, I think of a swollen, red, painful, hot joint, a knee or an elbow or something like that. But inflammation is going on at a more subtle level throughout our body, and it's going on in our cells, and we call it oxidative stress. And what ASEA does is to calm down that oxidative stress. And we know that it helps the kinds of inflammation that we're talking about, because in the gene study that we did, we found that one of the genetic pathways that gets beneficially affected by the redox signaling molecules is inflammation. And that applies. And like, the important thing is to understand that even if you don't have a painful swollen joint somewhere in your body, or even if you haven't been diagnosed with an inflammatory based illness, you do have inflammation going on, and your body is constantly fighting that. And these redox signaling molecules are very important in addressing that at the cellular level and keeping you from developing full-blown inflammatory response somewhere in your body.
Yeah. And I know a lot of questions that keep on coming up in the chat. And so I guess one more question, if I can ask quickly, is there any condition that ASEA cannot help with or does not help with?
Well, I haven't come across, theoretically and scientifically, and knowing how these work, there isn't really a condition that would not, you would rule out benefiting just from what we know about how this works and what it is. This is a tool to help cellular health. It's a tool to get your cells doing what they're supposed to be doing and quit doing things they're not supposed to be doing. And in that regard, there really isn't any disease where the possibility of improvement doesn't exist. So what I recommend to people is try it for 3 or 4 months, see what's going to happen. And there's a very high likelihood that you're going to start to see some benefit, but it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah. And a lot of these people that are hopping on, they might be trying ASEA. It's been a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, maybe 2 months, 3 months. Just touch on that really quickly, just to close. These are all people perhaps that are waiting to have their ASEA experience. What would you kind of say to them if they haven't quite seen the experience that they're wanting to have, or they're new to trying ASEA? What would your advice be to them, just in closing?
2 words, really: be patient. You didn't get that condition overnight. It's not going to go away overnight. And I had a very significant condition with my blood pressure that didn't correct for 4 years on ASEA, but then it did, and I don't have that problem anymore. Than I'd had it for 30 years or more. So be patient. I'm not saying that it's going to take 4 years for everybody's problems, because other things happened during that time, and other things happened to people around me that were taking ASEA that convinced me that it was a great long-term health and wellness product. So just be patient. Don't expect things to happen quickly. And if they do, just be very grateful for the fact that they did. But it's not unusual when people start taking ASEA for not much to happen initially. And that's why you should fill out the results tracker, so that you now start to notice maybe some of the more subtle wellness kind of things that happen but maybe your major symptom that you're wanting to go away hasn't happened yet. It will, or the chances are very good that it will. I can't tell you when. And the other thing that's important is to take enough, because oftentimes the 2 ounces twice a day that's recommended on the bottle just simply isn't enough. In fact, in most cases, it isn't enough. But give it time. Your body takes a while to get better, but when it gets better as a result of supplementing with ASEA, it's because things have been repaired, not because your body is covering things up and sweeping it under the rug.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Walker. Thank you for your time. We really, really appreciate it. I always learn something new whenever I get to spend time with you. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone for hopping on, and we will see you again next month for our special monthly event. Everyone have a wonderful day and take care.
It was a real pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.